Another round of theoretical card support. Today we are looking at Counter Fairies. While Counter Fairies recently picked up some new support in a structure deck, the support was rather lacking for fixing the problems of the archetype, most notably the somewhat weak monsters and the interaction with counter traps and the low bonus effects of that interaction. In a sense, that I pointed out in my Counter Fairy deck build, Counter Fairies right now are in a similar place to Gemini monsters. You have to contribute additional resources for these so-called bonus effects, but the bonus effects are so muted and can be acquired through generic means much more effectively and consistently. There's no real point in trying to shoot for the bonus effects, as it were. Overall, the structure deck did produce two decent cards, but three cards that really did not address the issues of the deck and, in a sense, in my opinion, didn't even help the deck at all. So let's see what we can do for Counter Fairies by replacing those three dead cards with three new cards that can actually be quality support. The first card, Guiding Zephyr. It's a pendulum monster, light, fairy, level 4, 800 attack, 1700 defense, and its pendulum scale is 7/7. Pendulum effect. Each time a counter trap card is activated, select one of the following effects. Return up to two level 4 or lower fairy type monsters in your banished zone to your graveyard. Add up to two level 4 or lower fairy type monsters from your graveyard to your hand. Monster effect. If this card is normal summoned, you can reveal up to two counter trap cards in your hand and or on your field, and if you do, destroy an equal number of cards on your opponent's field. You cannot attack directly on the turn this effect is used. If this card is special summoned, increase your life points equal to 500 times the number of fairy monsters on your field. One of the cards I felt was a no-brainer of sorts for new Counter Fairy support was another Pendulum monster that could counterplay with Ariadne. Zephyr is an example of that card. With a high scale, Zephyr and Ariadne allow for level 4 to level 6 summoning from the hand via Pendulum summoning, which can slightly address the lack of explosiveness problem that Counter Fairies have. Most of the time, they typically only play one monster at a time. The Pendulum effect allows for Banish Zone recovery for some of this new support, and existing support does involve banishing cards from the graveyard, but those effects can peter out because there's no effective way of recovering those monsters or graveyard retrieval to help set up future plays. The monster effect kind of bridges or deals with the board breaking problem that counter fairies have, where they can be effective at preventing the creation of a board with the right card, but have a rather difficult time breaking board, which makes their win percentage so low only when they go second. The normal summons requirement and the lack of direct attacking corresponding to this effect prevent the inherent +2 effect from being too powerful, in my opinion. Also, your opponent does receive some information about your hand and field or future field. If special summoned, Zephyr also helps deal with another problem that plagues counter fairy decks, the life point costs associated with the number of their counter trap activations when they do not have Ariadne in a pendulum zone. The second card, Parashath Trainee, Light Fairy, level 2, 100 attack, 100 defense. If this card is summoned, you can immediately tribute it to special summon one level 4 Light Fairy monster from your deck. It cannot attack, and it is unaffected by all card effects until the next end phase. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish it and one other fairy type monster to activate one of the following effects. Add one counter trap card in your deck to your hand. Special summon one level 4 or lower fairy monster in your hand or graveyard and double its attack until the end of the turn. If another Parashath monster is banished to activate this effect, draw one card. Both effects of Parashath Trainee can only be used once per turn. A couple of notes on this effect for clarity. First, the summons effect and graveyard banish effect are the effects that can only be used once per turn, not either of the graveyard banish effects. You can only pick one of the graveyard banish effects once per turn. Second, the summoned monster via this effect can attack and is affected by card effects after the next end phase. Trainee provides an important setup element for this deck. For like Cyframes, Counter Fairies heavily struggle with setting up monster field due to the variance of monster quality and rather situational nature with most of the cards. Trainee not only increases versatility and efficiency of the deck by grabbing the ideal level 4 light fairy monster for the given situation, but allows you to swarm the field with its special summoning ability or search a counter trap for further setup. For those who want a more Parashath themed counter fairy deck, you get that bonus effect of, oh, if I'm banishing another Parashath monster with this guy to activate its graveyard effect, I also net a draw. In short, training is designed to alleviate some of the randomness that affects counter fairies more than most other decks and give it some more explosive pop. Some might wonder, well, it's a Parashath monster. Where's the piercing? The trainee hasn't learned how to pierce yet. Finally, the third card, Aura from the Heavenly Chorus. Type Counter Trap. This card's effects is determined by the number of light fairy monsters in your graveyard, at least 0. If a monster attacks, negate the attack and end the battle phase. At least 2. When a monster effect is activated, negate its activation and destroy that card. At least 4. When a spell trap effect is activated, negate its activation and destroy that card. At least 6. When your opponent adds a card to his or her hand, banish one of those cards, and if you do, draw one card. After this card's resolution, you can discard any number of light fairy monsters from your hand to select an equal number of cards on the field and banish them. Skip your next battle phase when this effect is used. One of the interesting things about Counter Fairies as an archetype is the fact that it really doesn't have counter traps that work inherently within that archetype. By my reasoning, it only has two archetype specific counter traps, Divine Punishment and Rebirth of Parasha. It is appropriate that they receive another one here. Chorus focuses on powering up its counter ability based on the number of graveyard-based light fairy. In the right circumstances, its versatility can be devastating. But if the opponent can keep your graveyard clean of fairies, or you just end up banishing too many fairies from your graveyard without the ability to return them, then its negation usefulness is heavily handicapped as nothing more than a negate attack. The Vanish effect helps aid the big field clearing problem the deck has, but it is definitely at cost. I feel the loss of the next battle phase is a necessary balancing element for the opponent turn board clearing potential of this card. It'd be too easy to just wipe out your opponent's board, including the card you negate using this card, and then just spam the field and then OTK rush them. Well, that is my theoretical support for Counter Fairies. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.